Hello and welcome to the floor of my new teaching studio. I'm super excited to show you around this space eventually, but today I just want to share an updated video about how to change your violin or viola strings. So Shar Music, which is the place where I usually buy my strings from, just had a 20% off sale last week, so I finally bought myself some new strings. I do not even want to tell you how long it's been since I've changed the strings on both my viola and my violin. Though actually I've had violin strings sitting on my desk for a couple months because I've been meaning to film this video, but now I feel like doing it. So today I'm going to show you how I changed the strings on my viola, but I will also throw in some clips from the older version of this video where it might be helpful because it is kind of hard to film these things, so hopefully this new version is a little bit more in-depth. If you're new here, my name is Elizabeth, and I run the blog Life from the Viola section, where I share my favorite practice tips, general advice, and tech for musicians, and also some helpful instrument care tips as well. So let's get right into changing our strings. To change your strings, you will of course want your instrument, the new strings that you're changing to, a pencil, and a cleaning cloth. These things are all going to come in handy, and you will see when and where as we go. So when I'm changing my strings, no matter which instrument it is, viola or violin, I like to change my strings left to right. Sometimes I'll alternate and go on the lowest string, then kind of the middle string, then this one, then that one, just to alternate a little bit. When you're changing your strings, you want to only take one off at a time because all four of these strings hold the bridge in place along with the sound post on the inside. See if I can get that on camera. So the sound post is that kind of wooden dowel on the inside of the right F-hole. The sound post captures all of the vibrations from your instrument, and that's what really amplifies the sound. You don't want the sound post to fall out of place. It's very tricky to set back in, and you don't want to do it yourself. If your sound post falls, you do want to take it into a luthier, into the shop, and have them fix it for you because it has to go in a very specific spot inside your instrument. So you only want to loosen the tension on one string at a time, change that string, make sure that it's set, and then go on to the next one. Do the same thing. Just one string at a time. Should not loosen the tension enough to cause the bridge to fall over or to knock the sound post off on the inside. With changing strings, always go even slower than you think that you need. You know, this is something that takes a lot of trial and error. If this is your first time changing strings, you very well might break a string. When you're tuning with the pegs, always move slower than you need to and always loosen the peg first. So to loosen a peg, you turn towards where you play, where your face would be. So you turn this way to loosen the string. You can hear my C string super, super low. And then when you want to tune it higher, gradually turn away from you. You can hear it getting higher. But when you're about to tune, no matter which direction you want to tune, loosen the peg first to make the string go lower and then tighten to make it go higher. This just gets the string moving. If you just go right into turning away from you and making the string sound higher or sharper, the string very well might break from that sudden increase of tension. You want to loosen the tension first, get it moving, and then slowly go up. Alright, so I think we should just get started with changing our strings. So I'm going to start, this is my viola again, with the C string on the left, which is very out of tune now. So to start out, I'm going to just loosen this string all the way. It's very, very loose right now. I'm just going to pull it out, and you'll just kind of detach it from the tailpiece like that. I'm just going to set that other string aside. So once your first string is off, take this opportunity anytime the string is off to put some pencil lead in the groove where the string is going to go on the bridge, and some more in the groove by the peg box as well. Adding lead here just helps the string move a little more freely as you tune it back and forth, and it also helps the bridge stay in place instead of leaning as you turn it one way or another. Again, you don't want the bridge to fall over. It's just difficult, and that can also cause the sound post to collapse inside, and then you have to actually take it in and get that fixed. So you want to avoid that as much as you can. I also like to use this time as an opportunity to clean my fingerboard down with my cleaning cloth. So down here, I try to get rid of any rosin dust that's accumulated. And up here where your fingers play on the board, you might be able to get off some oils and dirt and dust and stuff. So now it's time to actually put the string on. So on any string, we have the ball end, and it always has one specific color for the brand. For Ava Parazzi, green and black are their brand colors, so that's what they use on the wrapping. And then the end that goes on the peg box is just plain. There's nothing on the end, but it does have a colorful wrapping. Ava Prazzi C string is purple. Other brands might be different though. So this ball end goes into the tailpiece. So we're going to feed this ball end into the tailpiece. Now some tailpieces are different, and in a second, once I get the C string on, I'll show you what it looks like on my violin tailpiece, which is a little bit different. So this one, you just feed it into this kind of little claw clip thing. So just feed it in there, and it should hook and stay if you pull it tight. Now I want to line it up on the bridge, and then from here on out, I hold the viola against my body to do the rest. So on your peg, you will see one hole that goes all the way through, so you can see the light and my finger behind it. So this hole is what you're going to just poke the string into and then wrap around it, all within the peg box. So you can see the hole in the peg right there. I moved it so that it's between the end of the peg box and the string. So now I'm going to feed the string, the end of the string, into the peg. There we go. And now I want to kind of sandwich the way that I wrap it. So I try to wrap it on the outside and then on the inside a little bit. And I try to pull it taut as much as I can. And generally I keep the viola against my body while I do this, against the bridge, so that that happens. Everything's a little weird with these camera angles, but that's okay. And then once it's almost tight, try to get the string into the groove, on both grooves really. And now we've got a string that's gonna be in tune. And once you get close to in tune, push it inwards so that the thicker end of the peg is holding the whole thing in place. And just so you know, here's what happens if you're tuning and you don't push inwards. Totally loose string, just loses all tension there. So always push inwards, and then it'll stay. All right, next up, I'm going to show you how I change my A string and E string on my violin. Those are two harder strings to change because the tension is so high and the strings are very thin. This is from my older How to Change Your Strings video, but the close-ups I think are really good in this one. So if you need to change an A or E string, keep watching. So we've zoomed in so that for the next string, you can see exactly what I'm doing. So I changed the G string with you, and then I changed the D string on my own. So next we're going to change the A string. So you want to find the peg that coordinates with the string. For the A string on the violin, it should be the top right peg. So we're going to loosen the peg and pull out a little bit as you loosen. You should be able to pull the string out, and then it'll come out of the tailpiece. Then find the string that you need, so violin A, and the plain end of the string is going to go into the peg. This ball end goes into the tailpiece. So make sure the peg is in the peg box and you can see the hole at the top. We're going to feed the plain end of this string into the hole until it hits the other side, and then start to wrap it. I generally like to wrap the string until the color goes around to the first peg, but that's just a guess. So again, this ball end is going to go into the tailpiece. Different types of tailpieces have different ways for the string to come in. So I have fine tuners on my violin, and so these little grooves are covered up, so I can't put the strings in those. But these fine tuners come with these little grabby things that you put the string in. So take this ball end and feed it into this little holder. I have to like push it down with my fingers to get it to stay. So now that I have the string in this little holder, I basically hug the instrument and I wind the peg so that we've got a strung string. Now we have to tune it to an A. So we've changed 3 out of the 4 strings, so the E string is going to be last. This is the highest string, so it has the highest tension, so this is the most likely to break. So if this is one of your first few times changing an E string, be super careful, go slower than you think you need to, especially when you're tightening the string, because the way you break it is by over-tuning it and tightening it further than it can stretch. So find the peg that coordinates with the E string, should be the lower one on the right, and loosen up the peg. So I'm going to take the E string out. Again, it comes in this little cheese pack, and it comes with a little guide and the string itself. So your E string may come with this little plastic worm or piece of macaroni on it. So you're going to want to line this little macaroni up with the bridge so that the very thin E string doesn't dig into your bridge and wear it down. So I've put the E string on, then I put the little macaroni holder over the bridge. Then very carefully I just hold my body against it to keep everything in place. Make sure everything is in the correct groove. Then we can very, very slowly tune it with the peg. So once you find the E, go slow, try not to overshoot it. Then you can push the peg in. Very, very slowly. There we go. And it's tight enough and it stays. All right, hopefully this angle is still pretty good. We will see. First time really sitting at my desk and filming something here in this new studio. Again, I'm so excited to show you around in here. It's gonna be really, really cool. There's some cool features in here and I like how I have it set up now so far. So now that we've changed our strings, I just wanna go over maybe a couple frequently asked questions and little details that I might not have shared while I was actually changing my strings. Again, this was a really, really hard video to film because it's so close up and you have to like get so into the instrument that it's hard to get a good camera angle of it. It was rough making this video this week, but there are just a couple of things that you're probably wondering about. So the first one is maybe how long does it take for strings to break in? And it might take a little bit longer or shorter depending on your instrument, what brand of strings you buy, and how much you play, what kind of environment you're in too. So I changed these strings on all instruments on Tuesday evening and it's now Friday afternoon. So I taught, let's see. Well, I taught for a bunch of hours Wednesday and Thursday. I'm not going to count it up because it's different numbers for viola versus violin, but it's been, I guess, 2.5 days since I changed the strings on my viola. I have not picked it up today. Let's just see if it's in tune or out of tune. It's like mostly in tune. I think the C string is a little flat and the G string is a little sharp, so not perfect, but not bad. You know, you could have an A string that's down to like an F or an E or something. The A string stayed in tune, so that's good. And it's been getting better and better every day. And again, that was only 2.5 days ago, so not too long this time around. Let's check in with my violin next. Again, I have taught a couple hours of violin since I changed the strings on Tuesday night, and I did spend about 30 minutes to an hour practicing. I think it was Tuesday night right after I changed the strings. So these have been played a good bit. Let's see where it's at today. Tune. So I think that shows good things for these strings and just in general. I mean, I've had some strings take like a week or so to break in before. I don't know really what I was doing differently. Maybe it was a little bit of the environment too, because the time I'm thinking of, I changed them over the summer when I was in high school and it took like at least a week for them to break in. I don't know if I was playing as much. I think it was the summer before I started college, so I was practicing a good bit more than I did earlier in high school. And I would have changed them to dominants. It's a really popular brand of strings, great for students. So I don't know. There's so many variables, and I think the more that you play on them, the faster they're gonna break in, and also the faster they're gonna wear out too. There's always that to think about also. Another question that you may have, especially if you're new to buying strings or if you just want to experiment with your sound, is what brand of strings should I buy? So this is a whole huge topic. I could always make a video and blog post on this later on if you want. Let me know if you're interested. But different brands of strings will give you slightly different sounds and tones and will speak differently on different instruments. Every instrument is a little bit different. They all have slightly different tones, and some instruments sound better in humidity and others sound better when it's drier out. Some violas have a really bright A string, some violins have a really bright E string tone, and others don't. So you have to make considerations for your specific instrument. And I know it can be a little difficult to define what qualities your own instrument has. It takes some time to get to know it and to learn what to listen for too. But I can tell you what strings I use right now. I use Ava Perazzi, just the standard green ones on my viola, and I use Vision Solo on my violin. Prior to that, I used dominants on both instruments. I had a different violin the last time that I bought dominant violin strings. So I don't know how they sound on this current violin, and even the violin that I just showed you a couple minutes ago from my older video, that's a different violin too. So they all speak a little differently. Now, a common problem with the violin is that the E string will whistle a little bit. Like if you bump it, I don't want to say the wrong way with your bow, but it feels that way when you play. If you bump it, even funnier, if you just come at the E string from a certain angle, sometimes it will just whistle or like squeal, high pitched, just really whistle is the best way to describe it. It will just make that tone instead of playing the actual E pitch. And that is a problem on both the violin that I currently use and the one that I showed earlier in this video. So there are specific E strings that are like anti-whistle strings. You could always try those if that's a problem that you have. I would love to experiment with those someday, but I didn't think to buy one this time around. So eventually I'll experiment with those. I can probably make it into a video and blog post with my experiences. But for now, if you experience that on your violin, that is always an option. So for students, I usually recommend trying dominant strings. They've gotten so expensive though. When I was in middle school and high school, when I used these regularly, that was 10 to 15 years ago. They cost about $75 for a viola set. Now they're $120 for a viola set. So the prices have gone way, way up for those strings, and it's really, really disappointing to see. All string prices have gone up. Of course, when I started using Ava Prazzi in, I think 2016, they were, I think about $110 a set for viola, and now they are $150. So all the prices are rising, as I'm sure you see everywhere, but it's awful for strings because it was already expensive. Now it's even worse. So, that's why I hadn't changed my strings in so long. It's like I've been waiting and holding out for a sale. Otherwise, it's really not worth it. I'm not outperforming that much right now. I really am just teaching. And yeah, I want to have a really good sound when I teach, but it's something that wasn't the highest priority the last however long it's been since I changed strings. So a really common question is, how often should I change strings? And that, of course, that answer is different for everybody. It depends on how much you play. So I read once, I think it was on violinist.com, someone asked, how often should I change my strings? And someone said their luthier says to change them about every 120 hours of playing. So coincidentally, my senior year of college, I kept track of every single minute that I practiced and how long I played in rehearsals and things. So I kept track of it every day, and then a total for every week, and then a total for every month, and then for the whole semester and for the whole year. It was interesting to do, but the most interesting thing that I found was I wrote down exactly when my strings didn't sound as good anymore, and then I changed them pretty soon after, just because I was able to change my strings. So it came out to about exactly 120 hours of playing on that set of strings before they started to sound dead and before I changed them. So that was super interesting. So if you ever hear that advice, it personally worked really, really well for me. It just worked out that way, and I wasn't even thinking about it when I kept track of my time. I just, at one point I noticed my strings don't sound as good anymore. And so I ordered new strings and I changed them. And on that day I said, I heard somewhere to change your strings every 120 hours of playing, and I've been keeping track of all my playing. Let's see. And I was like, my mind was just blown that it was so equal to that. It was so, so cool. So I think that that's generally pretty good advice. Now, I know if you're just dabbling in the violin, or if you play a ton, it might be really hard to track how much you're playing every day, or how long that takes. And I think even if you're not really playing on strings, after like a year or two, they're not gonna be as good anymore because they've been sitting with that high tension and they just get worn out. So for my students, I usually say about once a year. For college students, I usually say about once a semester or every 6 months. And that seems to be pretty general advice to go off of, at least until you're able to hear when the strings don't sound as good anymore, and you are able to think, oh, this doesn't sound as good anymore, I should change these. And then you hear an immediate difference. Like, it's so nice playing all my instruments now that they have new strings. I missed that sound so much. Last thing that I didn't mention in the video today was what I do with my old strings. So if you were here in this room with me right now, there are lots of moving boxes. You can't see them back here. They're all that way. If you looked in one of those boxes, you would find all of my strings from the last 10 plus years. Lots and lots and lots of packages of old strings. I should probably throw these away, but I feel really, really bad throwing that much stuff away. I know, I really should. But anyway, here's what I do with old strings. I just save the set that I take off, and I write the date that I changed them. This time, I usually just do the month and year. That's enough information for me. And then I stick them in my case, and I swap out any old, the older set that I had in there, and I just keep those as a backup in case a string snaps when I'm out somewhere. Then I have a string to put onto my viola or violin, and then when I get home, I can order a fresh one. So it's a backup without spending money that I don't need to spend on just having a backup that's gonna sit there and go bad over 5 years until a string actually breaks. Now, you could always buy basically a set of strings in advance and save those for backup situations, like, buy a set of Avoprazzi, leave them in your case, then if a string breaks or something, then you've got a whole set to change, and then order another one and wait for its time to come. You could totally do that. I think it's just more worthwhile for me to save my old strings, use that as a backup, and then order when the time comes. And I hardly ever break a string, so it's not like a backup set would be needed very often, but you do want to have it if you're going out and performing, or if you're just going out and doing things where it would not be good if you broke a string there. So I think it's always good to have a backup, and if you're changing your strings, you now have an extra set of strings, even if they're dead. At least you could put them on and hopefully play with them. I hope that covered all of your questions about changing strings. It is a very intricate process. It has a huge learning curve with it, and it's hard to show on video. It's something that is, I think, best taught one-on-one in person, where you can kind of feel out what it's like. Someone can really show you in depth the details, and you can see whatever you want. But I know it's so helpful to have these resources on the internet for anyone who's learning online, or for anyone who doesn't have a teacher or just wants some reinforcement. So I hope that this video was helpful. If you have any questions or would like to see any other aspects of this in depth, more close up or anything, let me know, and I can try to film like some shorts, reels, TikToks on those things. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. I post new videos about every other Sunday at noon Eastern time. I'm gonna get back into my schedule now that I moved into my new house. So yeah, good luck changing your strings. I hope that it goes well. Please let me know if you have any questions either here or on my blog or over on Instagram. I would be happy to help you out.